Hello everybody, welcome to Info Cluster. This is the second episode of the Python tutorial series. Today we are going to cover about comments, variables and data types. So what is commenting? Python has a commenting capability for the purpose of in-code documentation, and that means you might write a code and about an year from now you might have forgotten it, or when you give your code to others, the comments make the code easier to understand. So let's see how to insert comment. To insert comments, just type hashtag and type your comment. Generally, comments are used to describe the code you have written. Like if you are an absolute beginner to Python and you don't know what a print statement is, and you can write and comment about it. This prints text on screen. So this makes the programmer easier to understand the code. And comments are also used to make Python ignore a piece of code. Like I have print and I have some text on it. So if I don't want this line to be executed, I will have to just comment it out. So Python ignores this line and goes to the next. There are many types of comments. The first one is the hashtag one. When you put an hashtag, this entire line becomes an comment. The other one is the quotes one. If we type the triple quotes, all the lines next to it becomes a comment. This is a technique for multi-line commenting, and the hashtag one is for single line commenting. So let's type some comments on it. Comment line 2, comment line 3, and to close this comment and resume our programming, you have to just close this comment lines. It is just like we opened that. Type triple quotes. We can say it is like HTML. In HTML, you open a tag and you have to close that one. Like that, you have when you open a comment, multi-line comment, you have to close that. So then we can resume our code. We can type print I am fine. Now let's execute this and see what happens. So it printed out hello world, I am fine. So it's because we gave here print hello world, and that's uncommented, and here I am fine is also uncommented, and these lines are ignored by Python since they are commented out. So these are all about comments. Next, let's see variables. Variables are the fundamental building blocks of computer programming. It is like a container. It holds a value. In Python, it is super easy to create variables. To create a variable, just type the variable name. In my case, it's first name, and type an equal to sign, and just type the value you want to assign to it. I am assigning info cluster in quotes to it. So you can see the one in quotes is the value which is been assigned to this variable called first name. Since variables are a sort of a container, the values in it can be changed or called up after in the program. So let's print out the variable we have just created. Print for first name. So let's execute the code. You can see info cluster is printed out and not first name, because when you note here I didn't give first name in quotes because it is a variable name, not a value. So if you want to give just a value, you have to wrap it in quotes. So if I wrap this in first name in quotes, it is different. So let's check that out. It just prints first name just like that. It's because we wrapped it in quotes. Okay. This is a string variable. You will get to that later in this video. And very important one is there are some rules in creating variables. If you note this, the first name here isn't have capital F and capital N. Just like that, I have uppercase F and N here. So instead of that, if I have lowercase f and n here, that would be very different from this. So let's execute and try this out. So Python throws an error. It's because first name with capital F and N is very different from the lowercase f and n one. So these are some points you have to keep in mind while programming. And some other rules are, let me just bring that back. So whenever you are naming an variable, it must start with a letter or an underscore. Just like here, I have first name with an F, which is in letter, or it can also start with an underscore. I have double underscore before first name. So let's check that if Python prints that. So yeah, it comes. Info cluster is printed out. So we can say that variables can start with an underscore. Variable name cannot start with a number. Just like before I said, variables can only start with a letter or underscore. It cannot start with a number like this one. It won't work. Python throws an error. Let us check that too. I have 3 double underscore first name and the same here. Let me save that and execute it. So just like we predicted, Python threw an error. So we can say numbers cannot be at the start of a variable name. Variable name can only contain alphanumeric characters and underscores. Just alphanumeric characters are just a fancy name to say numbers and letters. If you want numbers in your variable name, you can just put it in between or at the last. So let's check that out too. I have the same variable name here also, and let me print that out. So it prints out info cluster. And also one important point, you can see here you cannot understand what that is. It looks like gibberish language. So variables must be as descriptive as possible. So I have variable name just name. So it just tells us this is a name, this value is a name. So keep your variable names as descriptive as possible. And this variable contains a string. We gave info cluster in quotes. That is a string, and it is a data type. So these on the screen are some data types we will be covering today. Let's look at the string data type first. So as I told, something that wrapped in quotation marks are strings. So since we are assigning a string to this variable can be known as string variable. And also there is integer data type. Integers are just numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4. We can also print that out. Let us check that. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4 is printed out on the screen, but it is whole lot different from the one wrapped in quotes. 1, 2, 3, 4 wrapped in quotes. Let us also check that in the terminal. You can see that made no difference. Here also 1, 2, 3, 4, and here also 1, 2, 3, 4. But that is wrong. Let me prove it. You can see this is an integer, I told. We can do many operations on integers, like one in addition. So I'm adding 6 to 1, 2, 3, 4, and let's print that out. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4 became 1, 2, 4, 0. It's because it added 6 to this. But if I wrap that in quotes, Python is gonna throw an error. Here's the error I told. It says can only concatenate string, not integer, to string. So that means this 1, 2, 3, 4 is a string and this 6 is an integer. We cannot concatenate, that means join two different data types. But we can do this. This is a string concatenation. I gave info as one string and cluster in another string. So let's check that out. You can see info cluster together printed out. It's because we concatenated them together with this plus sign. Okay, and here's another data type called Boolean. It is like just yes or no, technically true or false. Just I told true. So I'm giving this variable true. You can see Sublime Text changed the color of this. It's because it is a data type. So let's check that what is printed out. It is printed true. But you have to note that this is not a string, this is a boolean. We can use boolean in while loops and if conditions. We will talk about that later in any other video. And there are some data types for mapping and sequence, like strings, tuples, sets, dictionaries, etc. To create a list data type, just type brackets and we can type couple of strings or integers in it. We will talk about lists in another video just afterwards, too soon. So if this is a list, just like any other list you would expect. So if you want the first item in this list, you can also call that like name of 0, which means zeroth item of this list. When you start counting, you just start like 1, 2, 3, but in programming it is a lot different. In programming it starts with 0, like this is 0 and this one is 1 and the next is 2 and it's goes on like that, 3, 4, 5, etc. We will cover in depth of these data types in the next video. And like this video, comment this video, and don't forget to subscribe my channel. Thanks for watching.